And through that you're giving it away for Hashem. V'kach is him calling to all the inyanim, what you would really like to do, you got to take the opposite and give that to Hashem. That's Asher Yidvenu Liboy. And that's the way that you build, you had it called a Mikdash. And that's what we saw with Reb Hillel. He was used, and he had trained himself to do, only according to what's written in Shulchan Aruch. Yeah. I remember, here he is, millions of rubles or dollars, and he said, not for me. It couldn't be for me. In other words, he has taken all the choice tendencies of man and given them away to Hashem. Okay, so now, having made that basic policy statement, we're now going to look at a certain detail and bring out from that detail what we hope will be a very meaningful message. And that is, it's written, what is the truma that you should take from them? And according to Rashi, it's 13 different things which we're told. That's now Pasuk Gimel. V'zois ha-truma asher tichu mi'itom, zoho v'chesev u'nachoshes. Had it got gold and silver and copper. And then the next pasuk, u'scheles v'argomon, had it got types of very beautifully colored wool. V'sheish v'izim, the different types of threads and different ways of making beautiful garments. V'oiris eilima miodamim, v'oiris tchoshim, these are different skins of different animals to make the covering over the Mishkan. And then he says, v'atzei shittim, and cedar wood. Literally, that means cedar wood. Now, atzei shittim, for anybody who has to deal with wood, then he knows that atzei shittim is very high quality wood. And it only grows in certain places. You don't find beautiful cedar wood all over the place.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've heard the famous expression, the cedars of Lebanon. And so on. It's only in certain places. So comes along Rashi. Rashi says, what are they doing with these atzei shittim?
The wood.
So atzei shittim, everybody got it in Rashi. And Rashi says, "Ume'ayin hoyu lehem bamidbar." Where did they have in the desert cedar trees? You see, you guys have never been in deserts. I don't know, maybe you have. You have been in a desert? In America, probably. You also been in a desert, very good. So maybe you notice that there's no big trees grow in the desert. I mean, you have little sort of tufts of things that are desperately holding out and so on. But trees, mummies, don't grow in the desert. So Rashi said, where do they have these beautiful cedar trees and to make the atzei shittim? And what were the atzei shittim for? Does anybody know? What did they use the atzei shittim to make?
The ark, the Aaron.
What we learned today in the Chittas, the krashim, how they called the boards for the walls.
Yeah, for the wall.
So the 3 walls of the Mishkan were made out of atzei shittim. Also, the oren was made out of atzei shittim, and it was covered with gold. So therefore, says Rashi, where did they have them in the Midbar? Pirush Rebbe Tanchuma. Ashav Rebbe Tanchuma is the name of one of the great Amoraim. And he lived in Eretz Yisrael, and he wrote a special medrash. Have you ever heard of the medrash? Called Medrash Tanchuma. So Rashi quotes the Medrash Tanchuma many times, particularly in Shmois. He quotes very often the Medrash Tanchuma, but even in later Sfarim and Bamidbar and elsewhere. So Rashi says not Medrash Tanchuma, but he said Pirush Rebbe Tanchuma. How do you call it? A Rebbe called Tanchuma. Yeah? He says he was Mafarish that Yaakov Avinu. Now, who's Yaakov Avinu? Yaakov Avinu's the old Zayda, how do you call it? The old grandfather. He sort of way back in Israel, and he came down with all his sons and everything to Mitzrayim, and then in Mitzrayim they all multiplied very much, and he passed away young. Well, the Gemara says in Tainus that he didn't. Yaakov Avinu Lumeis. But whatever, Yaakov Avinu, and then after that there was Yosef, and there was a whole history in Mitzrayim. But Yaakov is still, he's way back. He's way back in history.
But how come it says that Yaakov Avinu planted Erozim? It says in the pasuk it says Shittim, and then there it says Erozim.
Very nice. So therefore he says, Tzofa Baruach HaKodesh. Yaakov Avinu looked forward into history with the Holy Spirit. And what did he see? Shasidim Yisrael livnois mishkan bamidbar. He foresaw Yaakov Avinu that they're going to get out of Mitzrayim and they're going to go into the Midbar. And what are they going to do there? They're going to build a Mikdash and a Mishkan for the Eibishter in the Midbar, inside the Midbar. So what did he do? V'hevi arozim leMitzrayim. He brought with him arozim from Eretz Yisrael to Mitzrayim. Yeah? But Tziva Labono. And he made a commandment to his sons, Litlaim imohem, that they should take the cedar trees with them, Kishayetu mime Mitzrayim. When it would come the time to go out, they have to take these cedar trees with them.
So what's the difference of Lashon Shittim and Erozim? What's the difference
But that's
exactly?
not the end. We haven't finished with this yet. Because Rashi's going to talk about this again in today's Chitza. But just when you look at that, at the first, they call it Balbati Shluk, what sort of impression do you get of this? I mean, Yaakov Avinu, an elderly man, and he's accompanied by all of his sons and their children and everything. It's a big group of people. And Yosef sent some wagons to help him. Well, not huge semi-trailers, or, with all the modern motors and a few little, carts and everything to help him. Have you ever seen cedar trees? What sort of an impression would you get about cedar trees?
Very big.
Humongous.
Huh?
It's a very humongous
They're pretty
tree.
heavy.
They're very heavy, yeah.
They're big and they're heavy trees.
Yeah.
Some people want to talk about the biggest and the tallest, heaviest tree. They say, a cedar tree. So here's Yaakov Avinu. He planted these trees already in Eretz Yisrael. Maybe we could say he brought with him the seeds from Eretz Yisrael. And he planted them in Mitzrayim. But it's a little bit tempting to understand that he brought with him already cedar trees, and he planted them, replanted in Mitzrayim. Actually, it's rather unusual with all of the things on his coat to get from Canaan, Eretz Canaan, into Mitzrayim. Yaakov Avinu should take it on himself to bring all these cedar trees.
Yeah.
And then it's even more amazing that he even grew a lot of these cedar trees in Mitzrayim with Yaakov Avinu. And then he said, when you guys leave, you got to take them with you. So what did the Yidden do when they left Mitzrayim? Did they have with them all sorts of good zachar and everything? They didn't take any supply with them at all, just their bare necessities, and they all went out into the desert. So to take cedar trees, and particularly numerous cedar trees. That's a big schlep.
Yeah.
They had to take into the midbar. So therefore, says Yaakov Avinu had to make a special tzivui, and he said, don't forget, you guys have to take the cedar trees with you, because the Avis is going to command you to build a Mishkan, and one of the things you're going to need is cedar trees.
How do they have time to take the seed? How do they have time? How do they have time?
To cut it down.
How do they get them?
Yeah, they didn't have time
How do
to,
they carry them?
or like time
Well, they must
to.
have some sort of carts or something. It's rather interesting, mystifying
Yeah.
to understand how would they do it. You know, they're moving out at this tremendous speed to get out of Egypt. Yeah, they were taken out in swiftly by the Everest in one day. They left the whole here they schleppen these big cedar trees.
Did they take the whole tree? The logs? Did they take the logs or did they mill it into boards over there?
Or maybe they were boards. Boards. Okay, but just the same. They're 10 amas high, the Krashim, or the Mission, are 10 amas high, and they're 1.5 amas one way thick, and the other way they were amas. So they're big. And later on the Gemara says in Masechta Nedarim that they were very heavy, papashtas. That's what it looks like, the Gemara is saying. And they're very heavy. And Moshe Rabbeinu, he didn't know how to lift them up, neither did anybody else. So he got all these shit, this little yidlach trying to get out of Mitzrayim, and they was just swishing them out, and they all slipping, these huge krashim. So therefore comes along the Ebenezer, and the Ebenezer says, listen, I'm very sorry, but he said, if everybody will say to me that I have to accept unconditionally what the Medrash Tanchuma says, then he says, I will accept it. And I'll go along to Medrash Tanchuma and I'll say that that's what happened. But he said, if you ask me, he says, I would learn another pshat altogether. It doesn't go. Why? He said, because they told Pari that they're only leaving for 3 days and they're going to offer korbanon in the midbar. So that they would need animals for that I understand. But all of a sudden Pari and all of his servants would see them slipping these huge krashim into the midbar, and they would start thinking, what do these guys need all these krashim? You know, they're all going for 3 days and they're coming back. Yeah, they would have known that something very lasting is going on here. You know, the drain is. So the Ebenezer says, "Al piha asegla pursuit zelo mistader." Elamai, he said, once they already got out into the midbar near Mount Sinai, where they were mekabel the Torah, and they stayed for a bit of time, there was a forest of cedar trees, not far from our Sinai. And what did they do? They went over there and cut down. When the Aaron said you have to bring cedar, they went and cut from there. And he said at the beginning, they already had sukkahs. So how did they make their sukkahs? You know, the sukkahs, they shavtis, but they used these cedar trees, so they were already familiar with the cedar trees. So the Ebenezer learns that they didn't take them out of Mitzrayim, they didn't know anything about it. When the Ebenezer said at Sinai that you have to build a Mishkan, what they're going to do it, so they said, oh yeah, a Mishkan, after Shittim, here we got a nice forest, take from there. These are how do you call it, the Ebenezer. Comes along the Daz, the Canim, the Bali Ateisaves, and the Bali Ateisaves, and he says another thing altogether. He agrees with the Ebenezer that for sure you can't say they took him out of Mitzrayim. He took him out, that's a huge task, would have raised a lot of attention. Ella would then, He said, what did they do? They met up with cedar trees. They found a forest, so he also says something like that. And he said, by the way, he said, cedar trees are not heavy. The Das Kenim Baliatesis, he says that cedar wood is very light. It's not heavy at all. And he said that when the Hashem told them that they have to bring, there would also have been a big issue to drag all these big krashim and build, get them ready and everything. So he said, no, cedar wood is very light, and they had an easy task with this. This wasn't a major issue. Adkan, up to here is the opinion of the Zakenim and the Bala Tezvah. So we see from that certain people disagree very profoundly with Rashi.
Mm-hmm.
And l'chora, one can understand, they have a point. But we see something very remarkable about Yaakov Avinu, don't we?
Yeah. Your feet.
Oh, sorry.
All the years I never allowed that in my class.
Right.
Amela, it followed that Yaakov Avinu, according to this pshat, was very, very amazing sort of a person. How would you, in our terms nowadays, how would you define Yaakov Avinu, according to Rashi?
Well planned.
A lot of foresight.
Yaakov Avinu was a big mishkast. He's a mishkast. Here we are, but there's other proofs of this also. Here he is sitting in Eretz Canaan. He's getting old, and all of a sudden he looks into Ruach HaKodesh. He says, well, we're going to be building a Mishkan, Not me, but my kinder, we're going to be building a Mishkan. Where are they going to build a Mishkan? In some beautiful park or some, a lovely city, and had to get a lot of COVID, and newspapers, and that's amazing. No, where are they going to be building the Midbar? Way out in the desert somewhere. Said, oh yes, Yaakov Avinu, all these inyanim, it all makes a lot of sense by Yaakov Avinu. Yeah, and he said, him Cain, we're going to start preparing. We can't just sit idle and say, oh, the Mishkan will put itself up. You're going to put the Mishkan up. You've got to start getting the Mishkan ready, b'poel mamish. Now. So what did he do? Yaakov Avinu planted these cedar trees. He takes them all the way with him down to Mitzrayim, and he replants them, or he brings all the seeds, which is also an oven cook, because there was a lot of them. And he plants them in Mitzrayim, and he watches very carefully that they grow, and he waters them, and he looks after them. And he says to all his sons, when you guys leave, which you're going to, another big kiddush, they didn't know they were leaving at that time so quick. Yaakov Avinu says, no, you're leaving Mitzrayim. He said, when you do, he said, you have to take with you these and build the Beis HaMikdash. You follow? Comes along the Ebenezer, and the Ebenezer said, yeah, but it doesn't quite make sense of Piseicha, He said, if you tell them, he writes the Ebenezer, if you tell me that I'm obliged to accept this, then I'll accept it. But he said, according to reason. And the Das Kingdom of Balates is basically the same point. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't. They found a forest. Yeah, and he could. There's another opinion which wants to say, come on. Isn't this all a little bit, extreme? Maybe it's a little bit, sort of spooky and a bit, it has the dress-up of a dream, Yeah. So Rashi says, I'm sorry, but that is purte shel mikra. And even the child who's 5 years old would also say with it. In other words, that you got to be a liver the whole time with the base of meat. And you got to get it ready, and you got to have it all ready, and you got to just, not just in your spiritual life, but kipshute, you got to prepare. You know the Sikha of the river. There was a Sikha on the river in Toshin Nonara, it was, where the Rebbe said that in Chagai Anovi, it said that Chagai Anovi said, yeah, before the building of the second base of Midas, he said that you have to go up into the mountains and bring wood and bring stones and everything. You got to get things ready. At that time, there wasn't actually a possibility to actually build the base of Midas, but he said you got to get things ready. And he told Yidden to go up into the mountains and look for things. So the Rebbe said, you see from Chagai Hanovi, that there was, how to call it, yeah, a tzivui on the part of a novi, a emes a novi, that you got to get things ready, you got to start working. And you got to work at it and stir other people up to the same thing. Okay, so now we're turning over. It's all right. This will all gradually finish in a few minutes, but we just have to show you one thing in today's parasha. Yeah. Oh, Ravi. At the beginning of Ravi, Pasuk Tesvo, chapter 26, Pasuk Tesvo.
Your question? Sure.
Everybody got it? 26, Pasuk Tesvo. Everybody got it?
No. Mm-hmm.
So, it starts off with the commandment, V'asisa es ha-kroshim, la-mishkan. You must make the boards for the Mishkan, atzei shitim oim dim, and they will be, cedar wood standing vertically. So Rashi said, what does it mean by standing vertically? Not that you took the cedar woods and laid them one on top of the other horizontally. They had to stand vertically. That's why you had the adonim, you know, the sockets at the bottom to hold each board in its place. So comes along Rashi, and Rashi says, what do you mean by saying Asiso es ha-kroshim? The kroshim. Nobody knows anything about kroshim at the moment. We're being taught now that you have to make kroshim. So why do you say Asiso es ha-kroshim? The kroshim. The word ha, the hey at the beginning, tends to make it seem that you already know about the kroshim. And you know what to do. Just make them. So Rashi said, well, what do you mean we know already? We're just learning about it now. Thanks very much. Go ahead. We're just learning now about the kroshim. So therefore comes along Rashi, and he says, Vasisas ha-kroshim, Hoyeloiloima Vasisa kroshim. He said, the Pasuk should have said, and make boards, because this is the first time you're being told to make the board. So he says, what does it mean, ha-kroshim? Yeah, Kamoshanema, yeah, where am I? I'm sorry. Yeah, Kamoshanema, Bechol Dova Vadova, that you have to make this, you have to make that. Mahu ha-kroshim. Yeah, it's mashma me'oisen ha'imdim u'miyuchodim lakach. The Hakroshim makes the impression that they're already standing and they're already been put aside, especially Miyuchodim, especially put aside for that. So Rashi starts off again. Yaakov Avinu noto arozim b'Mitzrayim. Here he says clearly, Rashi, that he already planted them, in Mitzrayim. Because Shemais, when he left, when he passed away, Tzivo Levono Lahaloisom Imohem, they should take these Koshim with them, Kashiyot Yetzum Mitzrayim, when they go out of Mitzrayim. V'omer lahem, and he said to them, She'osid HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Latzavi Sorison, La'aseish Mishkan B'midbar, that the Avis is going to command them to make to make boards from the Atzei Shittim in the Midbar. Ru'u, make sure, see to it, SHIUR muzumonim biyedchem, make sure that they're ready in your hands when you leave Egypt. Now, Bavli means the man from Babylon, but we don't know exactly who that's referring to. But there's a lot of piyutim from a very great, one of the Chachami was called Rabbi Elazar HaKalir. He made a lot of these poems, these different piyutim. So occasionally Rashi quotes them because they were written by very holy people and they're like written by Ruach HaKodesh. So therefore he said, "V'yosher Bavli b'piyut shelo," in his poem, Tas mata muzurozim koiras batenu arozim. This is a poetic verse which says that the planted things flew, muzurozim, how do you call it? Very energetically, and they became the koiras baitenu arozim, and they became the walls of our house, which were made out of cedar wood. So we notice that the poet uses the expression tas, mata arozim, that the whole planting flew literally in the hands of very energetic people. So we see that the Yidden not only took these things with them, which must have been a huge piece of work, but they literally, they flew with it, they ran with it. Yeah, they were running with tremendous power. Tas mata arozim. So he said, Darzu. Rashi says that they were very energetic. They were very adequate, hotline, adequate, very, very, just. Liyos muchonim biyodam mikoidem lochain. And therefore they planted them and grew them, and they were already ready. All they had to do was take them out, and when they did it with tremendous energy that literally flew. So basically, when you look at that Rashi, it's pretty much what he said at the beginning of the parsha. It's just a few differences. And I quote from this poem, probably by the Rebbe Elazar HaKalir, upon him. Why would Rashi see it necessary? It's very unusual for Rashi to chaza over twice the same thing, mamish, in one parsha. Very unusual. And yet, nonetheless, basically, except for different usage of language, Rashi says the same basic story, that Yaakov Avinu made sure these arozim grew in Mitzrayim, and he told his sons when they left they have to take them with them. And he gave the reason that they're going to have to build. It's pretty much the same pattern. It's just that he brought this poem, Tas Arozim. So obviously, but I'm not going to go into that now, but obviously there's all sorts of very important diukim in Rashi, why he used this expression here and in the first place another expression, etc., etc. But the main thing is that Rashi doubles up his message. And he tells us that Yaakov Avinu looked into the future to build the Beis Hamikdash, and he took steps with him the whole way down the line to see that the building of the Beis Hamikdash would be ready, even though it was way out in the Midbar. Now, why do you think Rashi would repeat that twice in the same parsha?